water, although judging by how damp some of the homes I've lived in are, I wouldn't be surprised if it was also true the other way around. And as I'm sure you're all aware, average bills as of next week will have almost doubled in 12 months, up to 2,500 as an average bill. We know that 6.5 million people will be in fuel poverty this winter. And what we've seen is a vastly inadequate government response. There has been intervention, which has stopped some of the worst of the crises. We were going to see 3,600 a year bills. But this is still predicated on basically bailing out fossil fuel companies, and it's based in the idea of the way that we secure our energy market is going to be through fossil fuel expansion, through North Sea drilling and through an end to the moratorium on fracking. We know these aren't the answers we need. So what are our solutions? They're, in the first instance, further emergency support this winter for those who need it, so they can heat their homes. Then in the longer run, and the real centre of this campaign is going to be on campaigning for government funding to go to local councils for street-by-street insulation, starting with the most fuel-poor neighbourhoods, so that you're tackling fuel poverty and climate crisis at once, in that if we're losing that waste of emissions, and we know a well-insulated home saves on average £1,000 a year. And then in the long run, the campaign also wants to change our energy system for good, to move away from a reliance on fossil fuels for our energy and to a fairer pricing system. So how do we think we get there? And that's where everyone in this room, I hope, comes in. And the theory of change we're going with, how we think we make this change, is by building people power from the grassroots up. And that means it can't just be the people we're already talking to. So what we hope is to build local hubs across the country. For example, Norwich for warm homes, or Luton for warm homes. Luton were who I was talking to the other day. So, and these need to, yes, talk to other environmental organisations in the area, but also to those we don't normally talk to necessarily, to housing organisations or food banks, or, given that we're in a church right now, a very beautiful church, faith-based groups that are kind of really active in their communities. And obviously people in Norwich know best where those people are and who you need to be talking to. And I'm really pleased to say Norwich Friends of the Earth has already signed up to the new campaign. So hopefully in not too long we'll see a Norwich for Warm Homes campaign. And then what we think these local hubs can do is build a really strong basis for community engagement as well as for building political pressure. Because if you've got a united community, it's a really powerful starting point to lobby MPs. And in what is potentially the 2024 election, it could obviously be sooner, make that election the energy election where no political party can go into it without having good solutions for our energy crisis. And really, we can show that if we unite together as communities, that these questions of climate crisis and the cost of living crisis are not in opposition, and that their solutions are actually one and the same. So I really hope some of you will get involved with the new campaign. And yeah, I'm happy. I'm going to stay around a bit, so if anyone wants to chat about it, I'll be here.
Fantastic, thank you. Can't resist saying a few final words. I want to thank Peter Mancroft again. I mean, we're so blessed to have buildings like this in the heart of our amazing city for hosting today's event. Reminder, we're not alone. There are thousands of it. I'm getting WhatsApp messages constantly from my colleagues who are at events all over the country, and the greatest thing is when they're not going to events but they're stumbling across them, and keep getting messages from Cornwall and Manchester and elsewhere. I just saw this in the local library, which is exciting. So there is a lot happening. It can feel difficult to hold hope in a time of crisis. And I find it in other people, and I found it in many of the people in the room today, so I want to thank you for that. If there is one thing we can do, and I'm very privileged to be on the National Organising Committee for the Warm This Winter campaign, it is critical, do support it. And as Esther said, one of the great things is we are working cross-sectorally now, and we need to do that because, as has been said so often today, these crises are absolutely connected. The nature crisis, the climate crisis, the international development crisis, the cost of living crisis, and sadly many others are absolutely interlinked. I want to give a very personal plug for a campaign. If you feel motivated to support, there is a petition running online. And if you go on to Facebook, if you use it, or similar, and look for the Ink Pot. The Ink Pot is a magical 16-acre permaculture farm in Lincolnshire, set up and run by a good friend of mine, Hannah Thorogood. And she has taken on a 16-acre north-facing clay slope that no farmers wanted to touch, which is why it was affordable, and has transformed it over the last decade into the most extraordinary example of rich, biodiverse, profit-making farmland. And the great thing about Hannah, who was, I think, in her mid-30s when she went there, and to be honest, a lot of the old boys around and about thought, who's this young whippersnapper? I haven't got a clue, she ain't going to last 5 minutes. They're all coming to her for advice now, and they're all looking to her to work out how they're going to make their farms profitable in a massively changing climate for farmers. She received a letter a few weeks ago to let her know that her and her neighbours' farms were going to be flooded for a new reservoir, and it won't exist anymore. And it's hit the family like a thunderbolt. And if you wish to, please do go and support their petition, because they need all the support that they can get at the moment. And to finish with a not even a bit of hope, but just a thought in my mind. I mentioned earlier, I'm from a Jewish family. Quite a lot of my work is actually rooted in climate and migration, and it's something we haven't talked about today, but will become an increasingly big issue in the coming years. My family had to flee the Ukraine 100 years ago, found sanctuary in the UK. We're very blessed to be hosting many Ukrainians in the city now. Sadly, these things continue to come around, but it is the new year today. Shana Tova to all, and the new year is a time for renewal and for hope. And I hope that today you found some of that, and if you haven't already, that you use this time to mingle and chat with fellow Norwich citizens, because we're a bunch of awesome people. Thanks so much, everyone.